They said to be a man is to feel nothing, but they were wrong. A real man feels everything and still chooses not to be ruled by it. He doesn't react, he responds. He doesn't break in pain, he sharpens. He doesn't tolerate what weakens him, he sets boundaries that build him. In a world loud with emotions, distractions, and easy escapes, one thing separates the strong from the lost: purpose. Purpose kills the noise. Suffering becomes the furnace, discipline becomes freedom, and every choice becomes a lesson in self-mastery, because what you allow, you become, and what you endure, you shape. The strongest men aren't numb, they're grounded. Stoic, unshakable, not because life is easy, but because they've chosen to rise through the fire. If you want to lead, love, and live like that, you must become that. Control begins where reaction ends. Control begins where reaction ends. It's the first thing a man must understand if he ever hopes to master himself. The world will never stop pressing your buttons. It will provoke, insult, frustrate, and tempt. That's what it does. It spins with chaos. But the man who cannot choose his response is owned by that chaos. He's not living, he's being dragged. You can tell everything about a man by what he reacts to. When a man jumps at every insult, argues every opinion, defends every emotion, he is not strong, he is enslaved. Enslaved by triggers, by ego, by noise, and the louder the world gets, the more he loses himself. But the man who stays silent when it would be easy to explode, the man who breathes instead of barking, the one who chooses his moment instead of lunging into every conflict, that man holds power. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't announce itself. It moves calmly, speaks with weight, and responds when it matters, not when it's convenient to emotion. You see, reaction is the language of the undisciplined. Reaction is what we do when we've surrendered the space between stimulus and response. And in that space, that sacred pause, is where mastery lives. A wise man doesn't silence himself out of fear. He silences himself out of strength. Because he knows words thrown in rage lose meaning. Decisions made in heat lose clarity. He lets storms pass before speaking. He lets emotion settle before acting. Not because he is weak, but because he refuses to be manipulated by the world's chaos. When something happens to you, a betrayal, an insult, a challenge, the instinct is to react. That fire rises fast. Your blood surges. Your pride wants to be heard, to defend itself, to strike back. But that moment right there, that small crack in time, that is your battleground. That is where you win or lose yourself. The man who chooses not to react in that moment doesn't suppress emotion, he masters it. He acknowledges it, studies it, then releases it or acts on it with intention. He does not give power to noise. He does not let others write his narrative. He owns his tone, his timing, his temperature. How many times have we said things in anger we wish we hadn't? How many relationships have burned down in seconds because a man couldn't pause? How many reputations have crumbled because someone couldn't control a momentary impulse? These are not accidents. These are signs of an undisciplined soul. But a disciplined man, he can be insulted and still keep his dignity. He can be provoked and still choose silence, not because he doesn't feel the flame, but because he knows not every fire is worth feeding. He lets the fire die where it starts, and in doing so, he wins without fighting. This kind of control is not something you're born with. It's trained. It's forged in discomfort. You build it every time you choose silence over shouting. Every time you walk away from pettiness. Every time you let your principles guide your mouth instead of your emotions, the world will try to make you reactive. It will try to turn you into a product of its noise. But if you can master the pause, if you can hold yourself steady in the middle of chaos, you become immovable. A man like that, one who moves with intention instead of impulse, becomes untouchable in all the ways that matter. Control is not about never feeling. It's about never letting those feelings dictate your behavior without permission. Let them rise, but don't let them lead. Observe, don't obey. Feel it, but don't follow it. That's how you become a man of depth, not just emotion. That's how you earn respect, not demand it. You don't need to speak first. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to prove you're strong. Your restraint proves it. Your silence echoes louder than shouting ever could, and the world notices. The woman beside you notices. The enemies across from you notice. But most importantly, your soul notices. It knows when you're no longer ruled by noise. It knows when you've taken back your power. Because when you no longer react to everything, you become free from everything. Detach to command inner peace. Because peace is not something you find lying in the soft corners of life. It isn't handed to you by comfort. It isn't gifted by the absence of struggle. It's forged, piece by piece, through discipline and more than anything, through detachment. A man cannot have peace if he is owned by his cravings, owned by his fears, owned by his need to be seen, loved, admired. If the world owns your desires, it will own your suffering. It will pull you like a puppet, and you will call that string your purpose. You will confuse attachment for love. You will confuse obsession for loyalty. You will confuse comfort for peace and be shattered the moment any of it is taken. But when you detach, truly detach, not by turning cold, but by turning inward, then you begin to understand freedom. And with freedom comes calm. You see things for what they are, not what your attachment wants them to be. You love without clinging. You strive without needing. You show up in life fully, and yet, when it walks away, you're still whole. A man should love deeply, work hard, pursue greatness, but he should never lose himself in any of it. Because if your peace depends on things outside of you, it will always be threatened. The job can be taken. The relationship can end, the praise can vanish, the money can disappear, and if your soul was tied to any of that, you'll fall with it. So how do you stay strong when things crumble? You detach. You step back from the illusion that you need to possess in order to be at peace. You do your duty, you carry your burden, you care, but you hold it all with open hands. You say, I will give everything to this, but I will not let it own me. This is not detachment out of fear. It's detachment out of strength. A coward lets go because he's afraid to feel. A strong man lets go because he refuses to be enslaved. He refuses to be ruled by his appetite for security or control. He looks at life and says, do what you must. I will not chase you. I will not beg you. I will not fall apart if you leave. That kind of strength disturbs people because it cannot be manipulated. You can't guilt a man who doesn't cling. You can't control a man who finds peace within. You can't break a man who holds nothing too tightly. The world will call him cold. It will say he feels nothing, but it's the opposite. He feels everything, he's just not imprisoned by it. There's a kind of pain in detachment, yes, the pain of dying to what once made you feel powerful. The pain of letting go of people who no longer respect your boundaries. The pain of releasing outcomes you once believed you couldn't live without. But that pain is necessary. It cuts away what was false. It sharpens what is true, and in that cutting you discover a strange, steady calm. You realize no one can steal your peace unless you've handed it to them. No one can wreck your heart unless you've chained it to theirs. No one can drag you into chaos unless you've left your anchor behind. So you start collecting those pieces. You start pulling your soul back inward. You start remembering that everything you ever truly needed, strength, purpose, clarity, peace, lives inside you, not around you. A man who detaches walks with a different presence. He's not desperate, he's not chasing, he's not afraid of losing, because his peace does not depend on any single outcome. It lives in how he shows up, how he holds himself, how he stays centered even as the storm screams around him. If you want peace, stop chasing ease. Stop thinking it lives in something you can touch, or own, or keep forever. Peace lives in surrender, not to weakness, but to wisdom. It says, "I will give the best of me to the world, but I will not give the world the power to destroy me." That is the quiet, steady path to inner peace, and what the world cannot own, it cannot break. Emotion without discipline is weakness, not because emotion is wrong, but because it's wild when left alone. It has no sense of timing, no sense of proportion, no loyalty to your higher self. It pulls you toward what's easy, what's loud, what's immediate. It wants release, not resolution. And a man who lets emotion lead will eventually destroy everything he was trying to protect. You must feel, but you must not follow. You must acknowledge the fire, but you cannot become it. When you move from pure emotion, you are no longer choosing, you're reacting, and reaction is not power. Reaction is a reflex. It's a surrender of your thinking, your judgment, your control. It's what animals do when threatened, but you are not an animal, you are a man. You are meant to rise above the first feeling and look deeper at what is right, not just what is loud inside you. Some men think strength is in the intensity of their feelings, that to love fiercely, to hate passionately, to speak boldly out of anger, that this is strength. But that is the strength of a fire burning out of control. It will destroy your home just as fast as it destroys your enemy. That's not power, that's recklessness dressed in pride. It feels good for a moment, but it leaves behind ruin. The man who wants to be more than that must learn the discipline to pause, to feel everything fully, but act only on what is worthy. He must be able to sit with rage and not lash out, to sit with grief and not collapse, to sit with lust and not chase. That's the measure of strength, not the force of what you feel, but the clarity of what you choose despite it. Discipline isn't cold. It isn't about being numb or indifferent. It's about channeling. A disciplined man doesn't feel less, he feels more clearly. He doesn't run from emotion, he studies it. He doesn't act on instinct, he acts on wisdom. And sometimes that wisdom says, not now, not this way, not like this. There are men who lose everything in a moment of undisciplined emotion, a relationship, a reputation, a future, all because they let their feelings speak louder than their principles, all because they thought emotion made them real, when in truth it only made them vulnerable to themselves. And what's worse, many never recover. They stay trapped in the consequences of a moment they didn't control. That's the tragedy of a man ruled by emotion. He doesn't just hurt others, he destroys himself. A man who is dangerous in the right way is not the one who explodes. It's the one who doesn't need to. The one who holds his silence when provoked. The one who chooses a calm word over a sharp insult. The one who walks away not out of weakness, but because his emotions don't run his legs. He runs them. There's courage in restraint. There's dignity in measured response. There's power in knowing you could act, but choose not to, not out of fear, but out of command. Because you know exactly who you are, and you know exactly what you want to build. You don't let emotion rewrite your values. You let your values lead emotion. So when anger rises, you don't suppress it, you hold it. You let it burn behind your eyes without letting it leave your mouth. When fear whispers, you don't obey, you listen, then you act anyway. When heartbreak crushes you, you don't drown, you grieve without surrendering your strength. That's emotional discipline. That's maturity. That's what separates men from boys. There's a kind of peace in this. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer at the mercy of your own storms. You can lead yourself through fire without setting everything ablaze. You can protect what matters without sacrificing who you are. And in that quiet command, you become something rare, a man not just with feelings, but with direction. A man not just with passion, but with purpose. Because the man who feels without discipline will always be a slave to circumstance. But the man who disciplines his emotion becomes free. Suffering is the furnace of strength. No man becomes unbreakable without first being broken. No soul becomes steady without first being shaken. You may try to run from the pain, numb it, hide it, avoid it, but all you're doing is delaying your transformation, because whether you choose it or not, life will teach you through pain. And the ones who choose to face it with open eyes, with clenched fists, with a willing heart, those are the ones who become something more than men. They become grounded, untouchable, steeled. A man's strength is not forged in peace. It is built in the dark, in the long nights where no one sees him struggle. It's built in heartbreak, in betrayal, in failure, in the slow grind of invisible battles. These are the moments that either destroy him or define him. And if he's wise, he stops asking, "Why me?" and starts asking, "What is this teaching me?" Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the test. It's the place where a man meets his edge and decides whether he will step beyond it or stay small. The pain is not there to crush you, it's there to call something out of you. Something deeper than comfort. Something truer than ease. But only if you're willing to look suffering in the eye and let it refine you. Most men spend their lives avoiding pain. They seek comfort like it's salvation, and when life gets hard, they fold. They retreat into pleasure, into distraction, into weakness. But the man who wants to be unbreakable does not run. He steps toward the fire. He lets it burn off what's false. He lets it strip away the ego, the illusion, the softness. He doesn't fear suffering, he respects it, because he knows what it produces. The truth is, if you were never wounded, you would never grow. If you were never pushed, you'd never learn what you're made of. Every scar you carry, every crack in your spirit, they are not marks of failure. They are proof that you endured, proof that you didn't give up when you had every reason to. And that is what separates the strong from the hollow. Not that they avoided pain, but that they let it make them stronger. Think about the man who has faced loss and still walks with grace. The man who has been betrayed and still trusts himself. The man who has failed publicly, been laughed at, knocked down, and still stands with quiet fire in his chest. That is not natural, that is built, and it is built in pain. You must stop seeing suffering as a punishment. It's not, it's a path, a brutal, honest, necessary path. One that reveals your weaknesses, your dependencies, your delusions, and one that gives you a choice. Will you harden into bitterness or into resolve? Will you let it turn you cold, or will you let it sharpen your edge, clarify your values, deepen your wisdom? There's no comfort in that choice, but there's power, and once you stop fearing the furnace, once you understand its purpose, something inside you shifts. You stop craving easy days. You stop being rattled by pressure. You stop asking life to be gentle with you. You start asking yourself to be stronger, steadier, more grounded no matter what it throws at you. It won't happen overnight. This kind of strength is slow. It's built in silence, in solitude, in those moments when no one is watching and quitting seems justified. But every time you don't quit, every time you don't break, every time you hold the line, you earn something no one can take from you. You earn depth, you earn grit. You earn the right to call yourself a man of strength, not because you pretend to be unshakable, but because you've been shaken and you still stand. Let others chase comfort. Let others fall apart when life doesn't go their way. Let others complain and point fingers and wait for rescue. You embrace the furnace. You let it shape you. You let it humble you. You let it teach you what no comfort ever could. Because the man who has suffered and still walks forward is no longer afraid of what lies ahead. He's already walked through fire, and now fire walks with him. What you tolerate, you teach. Every time you allow something that disrespects your values, every time you let someone cross a line without consequence, you're not just being patient, you're giving permission. You are setting a standard with your silence, and that standard shapes how others treat you. It shapes who you become. A man must understand that boundaries are not walls, they are definitions. They are not cruelty, they are clarity. You don't set boundaries to punish others. You set them to protect what is honorable in yourself. Because if you don't define where your line is, the world will walk all over it. People will push, twist, drain, and manipulate. Not always out of malice, sometimes out of habit. Sometimes out of their own wounds, but the result is the same. You are no longer living your life. You are reacting to theirs. When you allow disrespect, you're not being strong. You're being silent in the face of harm. When you excuse manipulation, you're not being wise. You're allowing confusion to become your compass. When you stay where love has already left, when you let your loyalty keep you in places your soul no longer belongs, you are teaching others that you will accept being treated less than you deserve. And that is not love. That is not humility. That is surrender in the worst way. There's this lie that says strong men must endure everything without resistance, that setting boundaries is weakness or coldness or pride, but the truth is the opposite. A man who lacks boundaries lacks identity. A man who cannot say enough will eventually say, I don't recognize myself anymore. And by the time he realizes it, the damage is done to his peace, his self-respect, and to the relationships that might have been saved by truth spoken early. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. If you accept chaos, they'll keep bringing it. If you accept inconsistency, they'll keep offering it. If you accept dishonesty, they'll learn you prefer comfort over truth. But when you speak with calm firmness, when you walk away from what violates your peace, when you make no room for manipulation, something powerful happens. You stop attracting what drains you. You stop inviting what weakens you. And you start building a life rooted in self-respect. There will be people who don't like your boundaries. Let them go. There will be those who call you difficult, cold, selfish. Let them speak. That noise doesn't belong to you. You don't need to explain why you protect your peace. You don't need to defend the space you've created between you and what harms you. The man who understands his worth doesn't waste energy justifying it. And you'll notice the moment you become clear, the right people remain, the people who value truth, the people who meet you in respect, the people who aren't intimidated by strength, but are drawn to it. They understand that your boundaries are not an attack. They are an invitation to real connection, because there is no intimacy without clarity. There is no love without respect. There is no peace without protection. The hardest part is not setting the boundary, it's holding it when it's tested, because it will be tested. People will come back with old habits, soft apologies, partial efforts, and you'll be tempted to make exceptions. Don't. Exceptions are where erosion begins. Be kind but be firm. Be patient but be unshakable. If someone truly values you, they will meet your standard. If they don't, they were never meant to stay. This discipline is not just for others, it's for yourself. You must also stop tolerating the lies you tell yourself, the excuses, the patterns you cling to out of fear, the stories you've inherited that keep you small. Set boundaries with your own weakness. Set boundaries with your own doubt. Demand more of yourself, not in perfection, but in integrity, because what you tolerate in silence will rule you, but what you face with clarity will set you free. Let every boundary you set be a signal not of rejection, but of reverence. Reverence for your values, reverence for your time, reverence for your future. You're not here to be everything to everyone. You're here to become whole, steady, honest, and that only happens when you stop tolerating what breaks you. Because the man who refuses to tolerate disrespect becomes the man who commands respect by how he lives, by what he allows, and by what he will never again accept. Purpose kills emotional noise. A man who knows why he wakes up, why he moves, why he endures, that man cannot be distracted by every emotional wave that tries to pull him under. He may feel sadness. He may feel anger. He may feel the weight of disappointment or heartbreak, but he does not lose his direction. He moves through the storm, not because it doesn't hurt, but because he knows what matters more. Emotions are part of the human condition. They rise without permission. They arrive like weather, beautiful one moment, brutal the next. But if a man waits for emotional clarity to act, if he lets his moods dictate his mission, he will live like a leaf in the wind, always moving, never rooted. He may feel everything deeply, but he will accomplish nothing. He will speak of dreams, but never build them. He will start many paths, but finish none. That is the tragedy of a man without purpose. He is moved by everything except conviction. Purpose changes how you carry pain. It doesn't remove it, it gives it meaning. When you know where you're going, even grief becomes fuel. Even loneliness becomes clarity. Even failure becomes a lesson. You no longer see your feelings as facts, you see them as signals, temporary, informative, but never in control, because the goal is still alive in your chest, and nothing, not even sorrow, is stronger than that. The man who is lost in emotion is not weak, he's just unanchored. He doesn't know what deserves his energy, so everything takes it. He doesn't know what to say no to, so he drowns in noise. But when a man finds purpose, when he finds that one thing that's worth fighting for, the unnecessary begins to fall away. He no longer needs everyone's approval. He no longer seeks comfort in the wrong places. He no longer argues just to be right. His mission speaks louder than his pain. People will try to distract him with drama, with opinions, with temptation. Life will test him with delay, with loss, with resistance. But he is not shaken, because he's not living for emotion. He's living for impact. He's living for legacy. And the man who is led by purpose becomes immune to the noise that breaks ordinary men. This doesn't mean he's cold. It means he's disciplined. It means he doesn't let today's emotions destroy tomorrow's vision. It means he feels everything and still chooses the hard thing, the right thing, the long-term thing. That is power. That is maturity. That is the difference between a man who reacts and a man who leads. You can always tell the difference. The man without purpose complains often. He's easily offended. He looks for shortcuts, for distractions, for comfort. His days are filled with busyness, but his soul is restless. He chases feelings because he doesn't know what else to chase. But the man with purpose, he's focused. He's calm under pressure. He's not perfect, but he's consistent. He may feel exhausted, but he still shows up. He may feel frustrated, but he doesn't quit. His life has weight because his days have meaning. He's not searching for the next emotional high. He's building something that lasts. Purpose silences the chaos inside. It silences the need for validation. It silences the fear that keeps men small. When you know why you're here, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop chasing people who don't see your worth. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop entertaining thoughts that weaken your spirit. And here's the truth: every man must find that purpose himself. No one can hand it to you. It's born in the struggle. It's discovered in silence. It's refined in failure. But once you have it, once you hold it close, it becomes your compass. It becomes the reason you rise when everything inside you wants to fall. And the world can roar all it wants, but the man with purpose hears only one voice, the voice that says keep going, because no emotion, no setback, no rejection is louder than the call of a man who knows why he's alive. When a man learns to master himself, the world loses its grip on him. He no longer reacts to chaos, he moves with calm. He doesn't avoid suffering, he lets it forge him. He doesn't get lost in emotion, he walks with it, not behind it. He draws lines not to push people away, but to protect the ground he stands on. He speaks less, but his silence carries weight. He listens, he learns, he leads not with noise, but with direction. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be clear, clear in your purpose, clear in your values, clear in what you'll allow and what you'll never again accept. This is how you become the man who doesn't drown in emotion, but walks through fire and comes out steel. So walk forward not with fear, but with resolve, and never forget. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself.